We get to Joe Flacco and his ultimate demise here, even though it wasn't necessarily his fault. The NFL season may have wrapped up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. When you place a $5 bet, that's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose for new customers. The app is easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, including live same-game parlays. You can find bets in the new Explorer tab. You can make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, which is the best way to find popular parlays, and much, much more. So make sure you visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Guys, Joe Flacco, Jay, you called it the magic carpet ride he had been on, came to a end this past weekend. Not his worst game ever, but his worst game in a Browns uniform. Are you surprised more of the timing that it happened when we all expected Joe Flacco to play his best considering his postseason experience more than the actual result itself? Jason, you want to start with that? Are you surprised that this is when Flacco's return to reality game happened?
I mean, yeah, I thought they were going to the Super Bowl. But also, I think it's really important to stress, like, he had 2 bad throws, and they were really bad throws. But I really don't think Flacco played all that terrible. Like, go back and, again, look at the first half. He had a terrific first half. It was overshadowed a little bit by what they did defensively in the second, or in how many points they were giving up. But the worst throw was the first pick six. And we talked about, I already mentioned, he thought he was trying to get it out of bounds. He was trying to throw it away, and he just didn't have the arm strength to do it, and it was a horrible throw. The second pick six was, to me, more a result of just the, normally you'd punt that away. It's 4th and long. Early third quarter, you punt that away, or mid-third quarter, I guess, by that point. Mm-hmm. But because the situation of the game, because you're down 17 and you're running out of possessions and you can't stop them on the other side, you have to go for it. I don't think that's a bad decision at all to go for that. But it's a 4th down play, and now you're trying to force something. Now it's just got to have it. You got to try and get something out of it. Certainly can't take a sack there, and then look what happens. It's a second pick six. So I don't think, yes, like, it all came crashing back to earth. Yes, it did. But I still don't think that he was like this terrible, awful performance out of him. I thought he was still pretty good, actually.
I did too.
He was great in the first half.
Yeah.
He was great. However, that's not good enough. And the bottom line is, yes, I blame Myles Garrett, I blame the defense way more than I blame Joe Flacco. But we can't just say it's 2 throws, because that first pick six was it. That was game over.
I didn't think it was.
Oh, come on now.
I didn't. The second one was. I didn't think the first one was.
I thought the first pick six made the score what? 30?
17. They're down 17.
They were down 17.
Yeah, they were down 10.
24-10, and then
in the third quarter.
Right.
Here's the reason I felt it was over is because, and I could be wrong, but this is what Joe Flacco was probably thinking.
Yeah.
The defense wasn't going to stop Houston.
No.
And I agree with you 100%. We say all picks aren't created equal. Yes, you can't ignore the 2 in his stat line. You can't. It jumps out at you. However, I think you put an asterisk next to them and you say they were a result of no running game, none, and the fact that Joe knew he couldn't have a possession in which he didn't score.
I don't think the first one he gets 0 pass from
first
me on
one
that
is
first.
all
no
him.
pass. I'm not saying there's a pass. I'm saying what's going on in his mind is we can't punt or we lose.
Right, but here's the deal. With that first interception, okay, as awful as the defense was in the first half, they stopped him 3 and out on that first drive in the second half. He had the ball already in field goal range or borderline field goal range.
36-yard line. That's
okay,
field goal
well,
range.
it probably
with
needed another 10 yards.
Yes,
but they were borderline field goal range. Down 10. Browns score there, even if it's a field goal, it's a different game.
I totally agree.
And listen, to me, that pick six, the game was over. That took the life out of the team, and they completely cratered after that.
But
you want to blame the defense for the second interception? Listen, he still made the throw.
Let me give you a scenario now, okay? He plays, because there's 2 games going on. We all know this. There's the game going on when the Browns have the ball, and there's the game going on when the Texans have the ball. The one thing that shocked all of us was the defense was absolutely abysmal. Let's just say, for the sake of this discussion, that the defense played up to its ability, or what we thought they would do, and it's 17-3 Browns at halftime. That changes everything. It changes the way you look at the game. Now you can say, let's make it a field possession game, put it in the hand of our capable elite defense, and we don't have to take chances.
It doesn't matter. Sometimes you're down. That's part of the NFL.
I know it.
And the good
I
quarterbacks
understand
make
that.
plays. Joe Flacco was not good enough. That's the bottom line.
Listen, nobody said he
Yeah.
was, and
Yeah.
I think we all are in agreement here.
Yeah.
He had a lot to do with the Browns losing this game.
Yes.
What we're saying is, what I'm saying, and I think you are too, is if you at halftime, I felt really good about our offense. I'm like, you know what? They're not going to be able to stop us either. We can't really stop them, but they're not going to be able to stop us. And I felt good about that. But the defense, every time they took the field, they were getting gashed one play after another. It was almost like C.J. Stroud was the 16-year vet. He just played up to the level that I was afraid he could.
In the end, when he had the ball there, that first possession of the third quarter, the defense had just made a stop, and they were only down 10. It wasn't panic time there. They were very much in the game
it
right
wasn't
there.
panic time.
And
yet.
I remember I told Zach in the press box, Jack, and I talked to players after the game who felt the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Just get points out of this drive.
Right.
You're down 10.
That's it.
Just get points.
And
get
that
a
was
little
an
bit of rhythm.
all-time bad
Get some momentum.
decision.
Yes, it was. But even at down 17, I guess the point I'm making is if they come back and hit a big play and cut it back to 10, you still think they're in the game. So 17 didn't feel like the end to me. 24 was the end. The second pick six, it was over. I still
And
didn't
that was
think it was
still a terrible throw by him.
It was, but it's a fourth down. He's under pressure. It's fourth and long. Like, I don't
Jason,
blame him.
I'm not giving any quarterback a pass in that situation. You got to make the play. I know it's a tough spot.
What do you want? I'd love to see that play again. Like, what do you want him to do? It's fourth and forever.
Yeah.
You're
It wasn't
you're
forever.
under
It was
pressure.
like
It was
fourth and-
15.
It was 4th and 2.
No.
Yeah,
second pick
it was.
It was 3rd and 1. They got stuffed on the short yardage.
That's right.
run.
It was
Will
4th and
Anderson make a
nothing.
tackle
All right,
for
I take
loss.
it back then.
Yeah,
I thought
it
it
was
was like
4th
4th
and
and 15.
I think later they went for a 4th and long, but the
The
game
pick
was
six
already
came
over.
on 4th and 2.
That was
Steve,
a
take
4th
19.
and 2. He's
Oh,
got to make
all
that
right.
play
Then
and
I
get a
had
bad
the-
throw.
then I had the wrong
Joe
play in mind.
Flacco gets no pass. Listen,
I'm not trying to give him a
despite
pass.
throwing an absurd amount of picks in the last 5 weeks, we gave him a pass for all of it because they won.
Yep.
So he gets no pass. They
But
lost.
I think we also were of the mindset that that's how this is going to end. We all said it Friday. This magic carpet ride
If
will
it ends,
end
this is how it
with
ends.
Joe Flacco interception.
Right,
And that's
ultimately,
exactly how it ended.
The picks wouldn't have killed him if the defense were terrible. But the defense had five, and who knows if the defense had a 3-and-out to start the second half. If Joe Flacco would have marched them down, not thrown that pick, and they would have gotten at least 3 points. Maybe the defense is. We've seen this defense play a bad quarter, not a bad half like that, but a bad quarter and turn it around.
Seattle.
The defense might have played a great second half. If they had scored, it'd been a one-possession game. It could have been a totally different game. We'll never know. But Joe Flacco, to me, failed in this game. He played great in the first half. He was trash in the second half when they needed him most.
What percentage of blame do you give Joe and do you give the defense?
I give the defense 90% of the blame.
Yeah, I know you said 90%.
I give the defense 75.
I give him 60. It
Wow,
was
you
so
give me even more.
inexplicable. Well,
Even less.
I spread mine out all over the place.
Yeah.
I give
I mean,
him 60.
there's
I
plenty
give
of blame
Joe
to go
20.
around.
I think injuries, and we talked about them, and we were relatively healthy. But to me, the 2 injuries that we didn't talk enough about during the year, and the reason we didn't was because our interior 3 of that offensive line had been so good that we just kept. It was like smoke and mirrors. But the lack of good tackles is going to cost you at some point. And to me, it was like 2 flashing lights on each side of that line. They were horrible. They weren't blocking anybody. Joe had pressure in his face all day. And the run game, once again, was
They had
completely
both played.
invisible.
I don't give any pass to injury at all. Injury's a part of the game. The Browns had a lot. We talked about it all year. We said how remarkable the season was that they did as well with injuries.
Yep.
I'm not giving them a pass for injuries. If we're going to blame
There's no pass. I'm giving
Yeah.
blame. I'm not saying there's no pass. I mean, they
Yeah.
didn't get injured on purpose. You got injured. But at some point,
Yeah.
the injuries take a toll.
I mean, it's not like Jedrick Wills was any good at left tackle.
Would you have taken him the last 6 games of the
I don't
season?
know.
Because we all agreed when he went out, oh, now he's playing well. Now he's hurt.
Yeah, I don't know. I
He
just
had
don't-
turned his season
I don't
around.
think the difference between Garrett Christian and Jed Wills was why they lost.
At one point, I stopped watching the game because it wasn't entertaining.
Yeah, I was watching it on mute.
And I was
Last-
just, I don't mean I turned it off. I stopped watching the action, and
Yeah.
I was just looking at the point of attack. Because we talked about this after the Michigan game and how they rode their dominant offensive and defensive lines to a championship. And oftentimes, that's the point of attack. You've got to win there. I just started watching the offensive line, and it was amazing to me how many breakdowns there were on every single play.
Well, the offensive line is a big issue going forward. They are spending, I don't know this for sure, but my guess is they're spending more on the offensive line than any team in the league. Without a doubt, it's got to be top 5. And yet, they're old, they're injury prone, and they're good but not great, and not good at all at tackle.
It's a concern. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole Mike wants
we're going
us
to talk
go
more about
this.
that tomorrow.
But I will just say that, and you're committed to these guys. Once you rework a contract, you're pretty much married to that guy. They reworked both Joel and Wyatt last offseason. Joel had a ton of injuries this year.
Conklin got the extension.
I don't know if he'll even play again. You're on the hook for $15 million for Wills for next year. So there's not a lot of outs here. And DeJuan Jones was far better than I think we thought that he could be as a 4th-round pick. I said all along it wasn't the physical ability, it was the maturity level. Well, he grew up quite a bit as the year went on, as he was out there. But the question now is, when he's massive, can his frame hold up over an NFL season?
Sure.
Can his knees support how big he is over an NFL? So there's a lot of concerns with that offensive line. Wyatt hurt himself again in this game.
Antonio.
Joel it's incredible that Joel, I was talking to Joel after the game, the fact that he played through that game with a high ankle sprain was unbelievable. So, and he just said, all year long it was something. It was a back, it was a finger, it was.
Well, he's at that age.
He's getting older.
He's at that age. And as much as we love him and what he does, and he's still a Pro Bowl caliber player, the one thing that you have to look at when you're putting a team together is, how reliable are these players? And there were a lot of players on this team that weren't available this year. Now, not all of them were age-related, but there were some of it was age-related.
Well, for Joel and Wyatt, the guards particularly, to play through some of the stuff that they went through this year and some of the injuries they had.
Yeah.
Mike said, I was texting with Mike and Bull yesterday. These guys are warriors, man.
Yeah.
No doubt.
The way that these guys I remember I talked to Wyatt the one time. He's like, I can't leave the game. No matter what happens. When they were really out of alignment, he's like, it was basically down to him. He said, it doesn't matter what happens to me. I can't leave. I have to stay in the game.
One of the things that Mike wanted to discuss this morning, and I'm glad that it's on the list, is we had made a big deal about playoff experience. How important it was that Joe Flacco had this mountain of playoff experience, and how because C.J. Stroud had none of it at the NFL level, even though he played in some very big games in college, that wasn't going to translate. Do we look at that aspect of all of this differently 48 hours after the fact?
No, I don't. I'm not going to
either.
Not because of one game. And Stroud's numbers were terrific, and he played great, and all credit to him. He was
special.
Great. I'm not taking anything away from it. The only point I'm making is the Browns didn't make it very hard on him. He was never under pressure. He was throwing to wide open guys. It's never that he had to fit tough passes into tight windows. It was 35 yards to Dalton Schultz.
Throw that he
Nico
made,
Collins.
You got to give him credit for that. He threw that ball 25 feet in the air.
He was throwing to guys who were wide open.
By the way, the first half could have been worse. He overthrew somebody.
Dalton Schultz was
Dalton
wide
Schultz
open.
dropped that one ball.
Wide open.
Was it Noah Brown on a deep pass? He was wide open.
It was Nico Collins.
Oh, well, that was Nico Collins also. Yeah, listen, Nico Collins is way better. He's better than I thought he was.
And Singletary played better than you expected too.
Singleton played very well. I said he played well down the stretch. I thought the Browns would stop him, but they didn't. Singleton played great down the stretch. Collins was fantastic. The Texans deserve a lot of credit.
Yes.
They kicked the Browns' ass across the board.
Yes.
Tons of credit to them. I'm not changing. Yes, it's in general, experience matters. In general, experience is a benefit. In this case, it didn't matter. There's exceptions to every rule.
Jay, you're not any more impressed with C.J. Stroud after what you saw
terrific.
Saturday? No, I know, but you were like, he did what any quarterback could do. He threw to open guys. He didn't play above your expectations at all?
Going back to the original question, did you change your mind on experience? No, I don't. I still think experience matters. I think CJ played great. I think he's a very special quarterback. I'm not taking anything away from him. The only point I'm making is the Browns didn't exactly make life hard on him. At what point did they have him under pressure? At what point did they have him feeling them? At what point did they have him making really hard throws into tight coverage?
There were a couple times where he had to step up in the pocket, move, but not much.
For the most part, I thought he just did whatever he wanted to do back there. And that was disappointing to see from the Browns side. And I'm not saying he couldn't do it under pressure. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying from what we saw, Browns didn't make life very hard on C.J. Stroud.
The Texans, or are they done?
Oh, they definitely could win another.
I
Why
mean,
not?
yeah, sure. They
Well,
could.
we don't know
yes.
who's left, obviously. The Pittsburgh game is tonight, Pittsburgh-Buffalo.
There's no reason they couldn't win again. I mean, Baltimore's a better team if they play Baltimore. So I think the other teams are better.
They're
but
likely
the way
going
he's
on.
playing,
They're likely going on the road now.
Yeah,
a
that's
dome
gonna
team
matter.
going outside.
Yeah.
You know, we'll see what the weather's like if it's Buffalo or
No, they're definitely going on the road because Kansas City already won. They're either going to they're either going to Buffalo, Kansas City, or
Right.
no, they
Buffalo,
right.
Kansas
lost.
City, or Baltimore.
Or Baltimore, one of those three
Yeah,
places.
yeah. So, yeah, they could. I don't know that I would pick them to win again. I just think, the Browns I was so disappointed in the Browns and the effort. Guys were jogging on defense. Backup tight ends, I don't
pathetic.
care who they are. Backup tight ends should not be running
I
away
didn't
from
know
me
who.
for
I didn't know
76
who
yard
number 9
touchdowns.
was.
That's pitiful.
We talk about him all week.
That's
By the way, the
embarrassing.
Browns' backup tight end had a big play. Harrison Bryant had
Bryant.
one big play.
Down at the
did.
goal line.
Who played well? JOK, Njoku,
David Bell.
David Bell, and Harrison Bryant. That
I
was about
thought,
it.
even though his yards per carry weren't great, I thought Hunt came with his construction hat. He ran hard. He got the tough yards. He scored the 2 touchdowns.
Hey, he's found a role for himself. He's a short yardage back. He can't do anything else.
no,
at
but
this point.
I love.
Don't say that.
No, he can't.
Oh,
he can't
don't
do
say
anything
that.
else. But he's very good at that short yardage goal
Yes, he
line
is.
role.
Because
Yes.
of his heart. I think it's because of his heart. You know who impressed me? Who impressed you most? I know there's time for us to talk about it later, but was there one player that impressed you more than any other?
JOK and
not in that game. All the playoff games so far.
Oh, all the playoff
'Cause
games.
my-
Jordan Love.